Hello and welcome to my High Fleet Beginner Guide. This guide will cover tips to help newbie and rookie players in playing the game. High Fleet is a game that has a good playing experience if you understand its mechanics. The game does a poor job at explaining to newcomers on how to play the game and maximize it to its fullest. It has no tutorial mode and you learn as you go when playing the campaign, hence, guides for games like these are very essential. When you get past the learning curve of this game, you are then able to enjoy it at your leisure. Ships in this game are basically a combination of parts from the shipworks. The game is essentially broken down to this fundamental core principle, which ship, aka combination of parts, is best suited for the situation to fight certain enemies in the game. It is important to try building your own ship as well if you have the time to spare and then test it out. It will allow you to see which weapon systems or combination thereof work best for a ship. You should also armor plate your ship with armor provided. When you understand how to build your ship, you can then easily customize, tweak, the vanilla ships in the campaign as well to your own liking. Parts are divided into 14 categories and all parts are placed on hull parts. Hull parts. This part is the building block of ships. It will allow you to place all other parts. It is also worth noting that the flight deck can be found under this category, which is used to place aircraft on top of it. Armor parts. These are placed at the edges of the ship to protect them from damage. Use them to protect other sensitive parts such as fuel tanks and missiles which are highly volatile. Fuel tanks. These serve as the fuel reserves for your ship. The more fuel tanks you put, the longer your ship can fly in the air. There are two types of fuel tanks, the big one and the small one. If you are planning to build and use only a small ship, use small fuel tanks. Otherwise, if you're planning to have a bigger ship, use a big fuel tank. The larger the fuel tank, the more surface area it has and the higher the risk of it getting hit from enemy fire and catching on fire. Make sure to protect fuel tanks with armor parts and have them placed in the core of your ship so as not to get hit often. Ammo parts. These are required for all gun weapons. The more guns you use, the more ammo parts you will require. Ammo for gun weapons is infinite in this game. Engines. These are required for all ships, without it the ship cannot fly. There are two types of engines, fixed and flexible. Fixed engines only propel in one direction and must be placed at the bottom of the ship. Flexible engines on the other hand can be placed anywhere in the ship as long as it does not collide with other parts. Chassis parts. These are used to enable the ship to land in the campaign. It is optional to use them if you are just testing the ship in shipworks mode, however they are a must if you want to use your custom ship in the campaign in order to land in cities. Guns. These are your main armaments. They use ammo from ammo parts. If enough ammo parts are destroyed on your ship, your guns will not be able to operate. Make sure you have placed enough or more than enough ammo parts in your ship. Sensors. These components specialize in radar, detection and missile launching capabilities. There are 6 types of parts in this category which are long-range radar, fire control radar, infrared search and track, aka IRST, electronic intelligence system, aka ICE, a jammer and a radio antenna. Certain missiles will require the fire control radar, aka FCR, must be installed on your ship in order to launch them. Armament. These are either missiles or bombs. In addition, there are 2 types of missiles in this game. Those that can be used in mid-air combat, and those that are radar-controlled, aka only in campaign. Missiles that can only be used in mid-air combat are the R5 Zenith, offensive missile, and the R9 Sprint, countermeasure/defensive missile to destroy R5 Zenith missiles. All the other missiles are radar-controlled and cannot be used in mid-air combat. The Fab 1000 is the bomb currently available that can be used only in mid-air combat. Aircraft. This is for deploying attack planes onto your ship, effectively making them like an aircraft carrier. Make sure to place flight decks in order to place them, which is under the hull parts category. Defense systems. These include a flare system, which is an alternative option against the R5 Zenith offensive missile, and an anti-artillery system generators. This is a fundamental part aside from the ammo parts. They provide electricity to parts that need it. Engines, guns, sensors, ammo parts, defense systems all need electricity to run. Crew quarters. This is needed as well because without manpower in your ship cannot run by itself. Emergency systems. The important part in this category is the EC-13 fire suppression system, which extinguishes flames on your ship. It is advisable to place them adjacent to flammable parts, particularly the fuel tank. On the other hand, it is optional to place the SK-2M escape pod on your ship, as long as you're a good pilot and always assure that you never get your ship destroyed. The escape pod allows you to salvage your crew rather than having all of your crew in that ship dead if the ship gets destroyed. When you are adding or removing parts, make sure to examine the stats of your ship shown in the left side. Any stat that are inadequate will be highlighted in red. The only stat that you can get away with being inadequate is evac, which reflects the number of escape pods present in your ship. It is entirely optional to install escape pods. This is the campaign map screen. Here we will discuss the individual components that make it up. The first component is radar. In order for this feature to be available, at least one of your ships in your strike group must have a radar installed, which is either the M700 or M500 radar. Otherwise, this feature is locked out. The radar tells you if there is an incoming hostile from your position and from what direction it is based from the bearing. You can switch the radar on or off by toggling this switch. With the radar turned on, you can be detected by enemy forces because radar sends energy waves that bounce back to reflect a signal. If an enemy missile group is nearby, they may even send in missiles your way. Hence, it is advised to turn off radar at all times. Only turn on radar when you really need it, i.e. if you need to chase a transport ship. It is worth noting that the difference between the 1 and infinity symbol is that 1 only does one sweep, while infinity means the radar will keep running until you toggle off the switch. Sector search is if you want the radar to scan in a cone instead of 360 degrees. If you need to adjust the bearing, use the knob here. There is a ground switch that can be toggled. This allows you to scan for ground targets, if any, which you can either turn on or off. If there is a contact, this light will flash. This part is called the electronic intelligence system. At least one of your ships in your selected strike group must have a MP404 or a MP21 sensor installed in order to use this feature, otherwise it will be locked out. The ICE, aka Electronic Intelligence System, is shaped like a telephone dial which indicates from what degree an enemy is coming from. For example, if the ICE flashes 30 degrees, it means that the enemy is coming from the northeast. If both 30 and 110 degrees light up, it means there are enemies coming from both directions and you may want to consider fleeing if you are outgunned. It is also worth noting that by default, most enemy radar is turned on, which is why they are detected through ICE. Hence, it is always advised to turn off your radar so you never get detected by the enemy through their ICE in the first place. The telephone is for intercepting radio signals from the enemy. You click on the telephone if your ICE, aka Electronic Intelligence System, flashes and you wish to determine where the enemy is. The jammer feature is only available if you have a jammer installed. It is under the sensors category and is shaped like a yellow cylinder which is unnamed. It is used to jam cruise missiles that are homing. Basically, any missile that does not have a letter P in it, which is also known as a homing missile, can be jammed to reduce their cone. However, it cannot jam cruise missiles that are anti-radiation. Any missile with the letter P in it, such as the KH-15PN. You will still get hit by those missiles. Also, turning on the jammer allows every other enemy to easily see you through their ICE system. Strike groups will be sure to go to you, so be sure to turn off the jammer if you don't need it. An alternative use for the jammer is to use it to lure enemies in a certain location, such as a city. This is the infrared tracking system, aka IRST. In order to use this feature, you must have a IRST-1 Mars installed at least in one of your ships. This detects heat signatures from either missiles or enemy ships through their engines, as they emit heat. If there is an infrared signal detected, the indicator will flash over here. Using an IRST is better as it is a passive form of radar rather than being an active one. This means that you can use the IRST undetected by the enemy instead of your standard radar. It is worth noting that IRST does not distinguish if what you detected is either a missile coming at you or an enemy ship coming at you. However, if both your ICE, Electronic Intelligence System, and your IRST light up from the same bearing, then you can be assured those are enemy ships coming at you, which can either be a strike group, missile group, carrier group, or a transport ship. You can also adjust the bearing of the IRST sensor here. All you need to do to use it is to turn the bearing knob of the IRST and see if you get a spike in this channel. If you do, then that means there is something coming from that area, which is represented by the cone of your IRST. Next is your available funds and repair parts, which are listed here. You can get more repair parts by either salvaging them from wreckage of enemy ships or by buying them from shops in towns. You can get more credits by selling excess parts, targeting enemy transport convoys, selling off ships from the Tarchons you meet, and by selling existing ships that you no longer need. In the campaign, credits are naturally scarce, so you have to be really wise in what you plan to do. You may or may not be able to defeat the entire enemy strike group with such limited resources, so tread cautiously and plan. Travel range. This is the maximum travel range based on how much fuel that all of your selected ships have. You can refuel when you land at cities and buy more fuel there. Note: the travel range changes based on what ships you select from the selection screen to the right. This also means you don't necessarily have to move all of your ships in one big group, and you can move them individually and freely as you like. However, you must take a big precaution. If your ship runs out of fuel in the middle of traveling, then it is basically stuck there until you have another ship that has enough fuel for both it and the ship that is stuck to travel to a city for refuel. Never run out of fuel. Fuel is the life force of ships in this game. If you run out of fuel, you are a sitting duck for enemy ships to fire at you. The hatch. Use this only when you want to land in a city and buy from its shop. Note: you can also land in the middle of nowhere and find hidden cities in the map. However, you will also spend fuel for trying to search such hidden cities as well, so be careful. Use the radar and toggle on the ground switch to scan for anything on the ground and land on it. You may find something. However, recall that doing this also draws attention of enemies around you. Thrust controls. Use this if you want all of your selected ships to either move in full speed, half speed, or come to a full stop. From my experience, moving at full speed to half speed does not seem to reduce the fuel consumption. It simply makes your ships travel slower, which may be useful if you want an enemy patrol group to come to pass first and then sneak ahead past through them. Note: full stop also consumes fuel, but at a very low rate. This makes the entire game basically a time-pressured game where you need to complete its main objective. You cannot camp forever in one spot for an infinite amount of time, sadly. Strike group selection. As mentioned earlier, this part shows all of your available ships and allows you to select which ships you want to travel as a group or as a solo. If you want a ship to travel alone, click on its button. Note that this screen lists all of your existing ships in the game, so if your ship is not listed here, it is most likely that it has been destroyed due to enemy fire, from missiles, etc., or if it was destroyed during mid-air combat. All ships that have been destroyed are permanently lost forever, which is why it's important to keep all of your ships alive as much as possible. Missile control. This section is all about launching all available cruise missiles that you have from all of your ships. If you want to select which missile to launch, turn the knob here. All missiles can be launched except the R5 Zenith missile, which is used only in mid-air combat, as well as its countermeasure counterpart, the R9 Sprint missile. You can launch up to 4 missiles at a time. To launch a missile, flip the red switch first and then press the shiny red button to launch a missile. If the missile is nuclear, aka has a N letter, then you are launching a nuclear strike at the enemy. Note that if you start launching nukes, then the enemy will also retaliate by launching nukes at you, turning it into nuclear mayhem. Alarm clock. This meter tells you if an enemy has detected you and how long does it take for them to stop chasing you. The clock will only go back to normal if no enemy sees you in visual range, which can be achieved by destroying all enemies that are in visual sight of you. The clock will rise to alert level if you stay in a city for too long, triggering the alarm for the enemy to chase you down. Call for aid button. If you need a little extra help from your allies, press this button. Throughout the game you will meet various NPCs that can become your ally to aid you in your mission. Note that in order to be able to call for aid, you need to have high level of standing with them, which can be achieved through the persuasion minigame. Each call for help will cost 1 level of standing with them, so you cannot just keep nagging them for help. You have to be decisive when to do it as well and have been able to achieve a high standing with them. Aircraft group button. This is only used if your ship has aircraft in it. It is used to carry out attacks with aircraft. Now, with all of that said, let us get into a gameplay sample. In this clip I have recently destroyed an enemy group and currently choosing what to salvage. Usually I would go for spare parts to make credits and oil if I need it. However, be careful, if there is a hazard sign beside what you want to salvage, you might want to equip your personnel with crew protection first. This is because if you don't and an accident happens, some of your crew might die if an accident happens. If your crew drops way too low, then your crew morale may suffer. You may add more crew if you choose the "Rescue the Survivors" option when salvaging. These survivors that you rescue then get added to your crew. Your crew is represented as a total percentage. You start with 100% crew in the start of the campaign. Make sure to keep crew levels adequate. In this case I rescued 31 people but took 302 casualties and ended up from 111% crew to 106% crew, which is not worth it. Be careful when rescuing crew, especially if it has a hazard sign. It may be wise to choose options that don't have the hazard sign to prevent casualties. In the ship selection screen for landing, you only need to land one ship to be able to refuel your entire fleet or repair your entire fleet. If you have custom ships from the shipworks, it will all show here. Ideally, choose only the ship that is easy to land with to prevent hassle. It is impossible to land ultra-large ships made from the shipworks, so don't bother trying it.
Fire reverse thrusters. Beginning final approach. 500 meters. 300 meters. 100 meters. Everyone get ready. Touchdown confirmed. Success. Thanks for your hard work.
My ships are now currently refueling as indicated by this flashing button. Once it's done refueling, it will no longer flash. Some events will happen throughout the game. If you choose the appropriate dialogue choices, you will get bonuses such as fleet morale. This concludes the beginner tutorial for Highfleet. I hope this helps you start the game as a beginner. There are many more complexities from this game that can be learned or discovered as you go. If this has helped you, please consider liking and subscribing. Happy gaming!